Should we do this?
Might as well.
Okay. Welcome to another fascinating edition of the episode of the Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 99. This is Tyler Janke. Welcome, and also being joined today with Chris Flower. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you for asking. I'm over the sniffles.
It's good to hear.
I may sound a little stuffed up still,
but
feeling much better. It was scheduled for snow this morning here in Folsom, and I came out and there was a little slush happening on my window. But did you get any at your house?
I had nothing. I was really disappointed. I woke up, opened the blinds, and just saw regular grass. It's kind of a letdown.
Yeah, this is the 5th of February, California. You don't expect that. So Curt got some up in his place, I know. That's exactly why he's not here, isn't that correct?
That's what I think is the case. He snowed in, unfortunately.
Actually, I don't know why he's not here. But we still on tap, hopefully, to get him in by episode 100. So we're coming up on that. So, okay, what are we going to cover today? Well, we'll do a real quick World Tour wrap-up, the Folsom Crit. I was going to have a thing of what Curt's mad at. Maybe it's what we're mad at Curt for. Folsom Crit. I already said that one. The bump race, things that make you go, the NCAA calendar, and some winners and losers. So, all right, you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Any last things about your weekend or riding in general? You said you were feeling a little sluggish today.
Yeah, I didn't. We did race on Saturday, but I didn't ride on Sunday or Monday, and I just feel tired today. And I don't know if that's a combination of just sitting around and just feeling lazy or just general fatigue. I'm not sure, but yeah, I definitely feel sluggish.
Yeah, maybe it's the weather.
That could be it.
All right. Yeah. World Tour. So, look, right now we're kind of in a stage of there's some of these early season races happening in the nether areas of the world. Southern hemisphere, they're going to go out to the Middle East. And we're not going to do, blow by blow because what do we have? We have a little bit more action going on here in our own hemisphere, our own racing. So we'll talk about that most of it. I thought we'd just wrap up a few things. Last week left off was a little at the Jayco Herald Sun Tour in Australia.
Yep.
A little rift between Richie Porte and Mike Woods. It looks like I was thinking Mike Woods is going to win this, the way they looked out. Come to find out, last day with a little bit of climbing, Sky takes off and gets in a break, and Dylan Van Barle ends up winning it. Actually, second to last day. Pretty good gap. They were like 2+ minutes. It looked like to me that EF Education First just didn't have the team to try to shut it down, try to get up the road, and it just didn't happen. Did you see any of that at all?
I didn't really see any of it. I saw some of I wouldn't even call them highlights. I would just say really quick snippets of the race. It looked like Van Barle got away with teammate Luke Rowe. Is that right?
I think that was an earlier day.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, this was, I don't think it was Luke. It could have been. But it was Mitchelton Scott Ryder that actually won the stage that day. I think you're thinking of a different one when they actually got that. But anyway, I was a little surprised. And then there was a little crack in the news. Richie Porte comes out on that day. I guess, his team isn't really helping to bring everything down. And his comment is, I'm not here to win the race for Woods. Why is he such a snarly little whiner? In my opinion, that's what it sounds like.
It's hard to say. I don't know if he's just kind of being a poor sport or maybe he's not living up to his expectations of himself and lashing out a little bit. Maybe he wants people to talk about Wollonga Hill more. I'm not sure. What's
interesting, just on that comment real quick, is it's perfectly fine that his team doesn't work because I think he said he was feeling under the weather. So, of course, you make Wood's team do it. But he had to throw it in with, it wasn't really fair the other day when he wouldn't help and he won. So, obviously, he's still bitter about that. And once again, I'd like to go back to that stage and just say, hey, that was a great job that Woods did of not working because, like I said, last 20K, it looked like Woods was doing a lot of the action to split the field. So, not working in the last 1K, big deal.
Yeah, you kind of earned that by doing the work to get the separation.
Right. That's just my thing. Whatever. He loses. Sky comes out. They had the team to do it. Kenny Alessandre was a lot of help in there. So Dylan Van Barle, wasn't he with EF a few years ago?
I think so. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Okay. San Juan Internacional, Quick Step. I think they cleaned up there. Actually, the winner overall was Winner Anaconda.
From Movistar.
From Movistar, yeah. But
they
had some other...
the Quick Step debacle kind of faded out a little bit there toward the end of the race.
Right. And so, we mentioned last week, we need to keep going into it. But for me, the interesting thing of this, especially when you have all this stuff always happening in politics and people, getting called out for stuff that's happening. I mean, this wasn't a thing from the past. It's just happened. And it's just interesting when you don't own up to it right away, which I feel, I guess my whole thing in this is I don't feel sorry for this guy, but I think he screwed up. He didn't mean to do what he did. And maybe in the heat of the moment, I'm giving him some benefits of doubt here. But his team did not allow this to go away because they jumped in, and then Specialized had to get in. And it's just this, I think if you have a team, maybe like a EF where they're just, voters would probably say, look, we support this guy, but yeah, he screwed up.
Right.
I almost feel bad for this guy in a way that it continues and we're still talking about it. Any last words on that or that race at all?
No, it's kind of a bummer. It seems like a really cool race. It's just really difficult to get coverage. So it'd be interesting to be able to watch that in a little more detail. And I don't know if it's like a subscription that I just don't have, but the video feeds that I'm able to come across are just really choppy at best, and it's really hard to parse out what's going on in the race.
So, yeah, I did see a few titles and some things. Evan Poel, I mean, he comes out, looks really good, and so right away you're like, hey, what's his future going to be? And there's obviously that speculation hitting the fan already. So it'll be interesting to see where he comes out on this whole thing. I think Sam Bennett won the last stage. So that was that right, or was that? No, they're in Australia.
No, Sam Bennett's there.
He's okay. So there was
Sagan. Gaviria winning, because I think Sagan was dedicated to leading Bennett out.
Yeah, and Bennett won, and he's like, there's more pressure when that happens. So that's an interesting thing, and I know he got a chance last year in Australia to do some sprinting with Sagan leading him out. Okay, so there's that. And then this last weekend we had CycloCross. You want to say it?
I think it's CycloCross.
There you go. Worlds. Yeah. And I know you spent a lot of heavy time checking that out. So why don't you give us a breakdown of what you heard, saw, and read?
Yeah, so I was interested in it just because Mathieu van der Poel seems like a phenomenal cyclist.
Now, who won last year for the men?
Wout van Aert.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe van der Poel got second last year. So I think van Aert has won it the last 2 years leading into this race. So he's crossed over really well onto roads, as we saw last year. Yeah. And Van der Poel's done the same thing, where he's done really well on road. He's done really well in cross. I think he's been the most dominant rider in cross this year. So the expectation is that he would win Worlds, and he's done really well on the mountain bike. I guess now that cross is over for him, he's going to do some road stuff, but ultimately he's going to be focusing on prepping for the 2020 Olympics for the mountain bike. His goal is to win that.
We had mentioned that before.
Yeah, but anyway, I caught as much as I could of the men's elite race, just due to time differences. It started really early, and I think I woke up and the race had 2 laps left. Luckily, I was able to kind of watch it from earlier in the...
This year was in Atlanta, Georgia, right?
No, unfortunately not.
Kentucky? No, it was in the... We're just making a joke because it's in 2020. It's in Arkansas. But where was it this year?
I believe it was in Denmark, in a city name that I just don't have the ability to pronounce.
Sweet.
Bojanese?
Yeah, that's right.
Like that. Anyway, I watched it. I don't watch a lot of cross, so what I saw seemed interesting, but it is probably par for the course for cyclocross. The race was kind of blown up in the first 60 seconds. I mean, it was basically, you're getting a spot on the start line based on your world ranking, I assume, and then it's just full bore sprint into the whole shot. And if you're not going into that whole shot in like the top 20, you're pretty much done.
Right.
So coming
like
out of
Supercross when you're watching it with Stefan.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's exactly that. And a minute, 2 minutes into the race, it was pretty much whittled down to like 12 guys. It was like 5 Belgians, 6 Dutch, and then there was like a lone Spanish rider in there. And that was the race. After that, everybody else was kind of racing for top 20. But it really came down to just Van der Poel being incredible on the bike. And he actually had some help early from a teammate. I think it was Van der Haar helped him out. So it got whittled down to, like I said, that group of 12 guys. Minute 15, they were going over this off-camber section. Van der Poel went over it first. Toon Aerts from Belgium was right behind him. He kind of stumbled, and that gave Van der Poel a really quick gap. And Van der Poel's teammate saw that there was the gap, and he just literally sat up and coasted, let the gap go. And it was, I mean, it's just like road, but on dirt, where teammate sits up, and he wasn't really blocking per se as much
blocking
as he was
the road. I mean, literally.
Yeah. And there was a big gap, and Van der Poel got a really good gap on the field. And then Van Aert and Toenaerts put in a ton of effort to pull him back. Toenaerts blew up in the process, and Van Aert reconnected with him like 22 minutes into the race. And there was the two of them just kind of going at it for a while before they got back around to that same off-camber section, and Van Aert stumbled, and Van der Poel just attacked, and that was the end of the race. From what I saw, again, I don't watch a lot of cyclocross, so it just seemed like Van der Poel had the stronger engine and the better kind of skill set on the bike just to blow everybody away. Once he got away, he just kind of motored and was gone. Toenaerts was able to put in a pretty big amount of work to bring himself back up to Wout van Aert. In the last lap, Toenaerts crashed. Van Aert took advantage of that and attacked and was able to secure second place. But it was just interesting kind of seeing the dynamics of that whole race play out, in the sense that, you know, at the start of the race, everybody was working, it seemed like, for an individual in their country. Everybody's working for Van der Poel on the Dutch side. Everybody was working for Van Aert in the Belgian side. And once it was pretty evident that Van der Poel was going to win, it kind of fell apart to everybody for themselves, get the best result you can.
Right. Yeah, you got to do that.
Yeah. But it was interesting to see. And Van der Poel is just, I mean, he's impressive. I mean, he's won some really big road events.
Do you know how old he is?
I want to say he's early 20s, 25, something like that.
So much like Van Aert.
Yeah, I think they're really, really close in age. And I think Toenaerts is as well, but it sounds like both Van der Poel and Van Aert are going to be going toward a road or mountain focus, and that kind of leaves Toenaerts as the big cross guy in Europe world now.
Assuming that they don't venture back into that each and every year. I mean, it's probably not it seems like a short season, so
it does. And I don't know if there's contract requirements that they have or what, because I think Van der Poel's still tied to his existing team, something Circus. I forget what they're called.
Circus.
Yeah, it sounds right. It's the bunch of clowns.
Now, but yeah, so you had made a mention that they got a wild card for some pretty big road races.
Yeah, so Van der Poel's team, Circus, from what I understand, they got a wild card invite to Ghent-Wevelgem, which is it's a good race. It's a big classic. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in that environment against the likes of Sagan and company.
Who did Rowley got invited to a race too? Do you remember which one that is?
Oh, was it? It was one of the Ardennes classics.
Like Flesh Wallon or
maybe, yeah. Okay. It seemed like a big one.
I'm surprised we missed that. It should have been on this show.
Yeah.
We'll probably try to confirm back, and obviously when the race happens later in the year, we'll get back to that as well. Yeah. Any other tidbits from there?
It was like I said, I don't watch a lot of cross, so it was cool to see that kind of best of the best of the best, and see Van der Poel just crush everybody. I mean, he was on fire. So that's what I saw on the men's race. I didn't watch the women's race, but I did read up on that. Sonnekant from Belgium, she won. I guess it was her third title.
Right.
And then Lucinda Brand from the Netherlands, she got second. There was a little bit of, I wouldn't call it drama per se, but a little bit of mishap on her part going in the last laps. So they were doing a bike change, and I guess she wasn't fully unclipped when the mechanic / her father went to go take the bike from her, and she was still clipped in and just hit the deck. She says, yeah, it sucked. I wouldn't have been able to come back and actually catch on and win, but it was not probably the way.
Time. Yeah, inopportune time.
Yeah.
That's too bad. What about this beers gate that happened there?
Beers gates. Yeah, so I guess once...
or do you want to talk about that later?
We can talk about it now. I guess once it was pretty obvious that Van der Poel was just riding away from everybody, I guess the Belgian fans weren't too stoked about it, so they were throwing beer and mud at him as he came around, I guess like Belgian corner, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, it sounds like it was not that well received by Van der Poel's dad, and the Belgian Cycling Federation has come out after the fact and apologized and said, it was a small minority of disgruntled fans, and it's not reflective of all our riders
Oh,
or all
really?
our
You can't
fans.
impugn the whole nation on that?
Shocker, right?
I know. We talked about that during their tour, right? With things happening. Some guy wearing a AGTR jersey, and you know, say, hey, that's grabbing Thomas's arm at the top of one of the climbs. Okay, so enjoyable mostly. I mean, you know, we talked about this before. I mean, how do you? Let me ask you this: so they seem to have full coverage, so they've got to have a lot of fixed cameras on the course, I would imagine.
And they had drones as well. They had a lot of different options for viewing, and they were able to focus on some. Like they wanted to focus on a rider for the entire lap. It seemed like they had the ability to like have a drone over him the whole time. So it was really good coverage, and it seemed like the guys were pretty savvy as to where to put the cameras and when they needed to. Like, okay, Vanderpool's gone, so let's focus on the race for second. And they were able to kind of focus in on that, so it was good coverage.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So maybe they should start incorporating crits like this as well.
I think they could. I mean, God, the fitness these guys have, I mean, just totally tangential. I mean, the fitness to just be on gas for an hour. It was like an hour, 10 minutes, whatever it was. I mean, that's impressive.
Right.
But yeah, their ability to cover the race with as technical as it was, I mean, they should be able to do the same for a crit.
Right, but they don't do too many crits over in the UK or Belgium or whatever. Oh, actually, they probably do, but I mean, like World Tour crits. They're not doing World Tour crits. And when they do, they are post Tour de France, and it's staged, and you get a Froome winning a crit, which is an abomination, probably.
Like a faux crit.
Right. All right, we'll just run through a few quick other results here. Kittel, I saw he got his first win at Trofeo Palma. Don't really know much about that win other than he got it.
Beat anybody? I mean, I know I saw Degenkolb was 8th.
I think it was. Are you saying he was the only person that lined up?
Anybody of significance?
You know, I didn't even look. I just saw that. Yeah. Okay, some sprinters are starting. You know, and you've got to have some of those notches, right? I mean, Caleb got the pre-Bay Classic or whatever, you know, that was there, but got his other one taken away. But you've got to win. I think
Greipel is in there. I think he got 3rd or 4th. So
I think he's got a win already this year.
Oh, does he?
So you know, it's Sagan has got one. You know, so you're starting to see these guys coming to, and you always start to see kind of that mesh when they started getting out in the desert until you know everyone's kind of firing off. Like last year, I thought it was great because early season it seemed like every sprinter was already collecting something. Grunewagen, you know, all these guys.
Yeah,
and I was
haven't seen anything from him this year.
I don't know. Yeah, so maybe he's trying to peak right because he's like, shit, it's gonna be tough for me to make this tour team.
Yeah,
I need to
A, make the tour team, and B, have the fitness to be there for the last stage.
Right,
because nobody was there last year.
Right. Yeah, a really good call. Vuelta Comunitat Valenciana begins. That's the tour. It's in Spain. It's one of these early season Spanish climbing races. So you've got Valverde and some of these other guys.
Who doesn't want to win that?
You know, the problem is it's probably was under a different name that we would recognize, but you know, they changed.
I think Rally's at this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep our eyes on that. Just another one coming up is a Tour Colombia, and I started looking at this the other day. I was just looking at the World Tour calendar, and I saw this one. And I was like, oh, our friend Andrew Chamizo is out there. Arya Kani is as well. Well, it illuminates on the start list. So is Eovolo.
Right.
So I don't know if Andrew's guest riding for anybody, but he's obviously down there hanging out with that team. And so it looks like Froome's going to be out there, Bernal, a bunch of these guys. And I know last year it was a 3-way kind of a Quintana, Bernal, and what's his name? Rigo ran. Those three were all really tearing it apart. So do you have anything you saw for that?
I didn't really see a lot leading into this race. I know that there's a handful of the riders that are down there kind of acclimating to the time and elevation changes. And I saw a video on social media of Chris Froome, for some reason, climbing like a 10% grade. I wouldn't even call it a gravel road, more like a walking trail on his $15,000 TT bike with a motorcycle in tow. And I'm not sure what the point of that was. I don't see what you're gaining, but he did it and he had it on social media. It was interesting to see him kind of trekking that bike through that environment. I'm absolutely out of place, but it looked cool, I suppose. So
yeah, that's like,
he's ready.
It's like some of these, you see these, I've seen like a Lamborghini or an old Ferrari, and they're like, it's in Russia, and they're like pulling the hay bales or something like this. Like, what are you doing with that as your farming car? That's kind of what that would look like. Right. All right, Tour of Oman coming up in the first part of February, 16 to 21. If you want to look more at the World Tour calendar, I would suggest you just go to steephill.tv, and there's a list over there. You can click on it and find your races. What's Curt mad at? Usually he takes a segment, and when I say usually, he gets mad for when I even say this.
That's true. That's why he's not here.
Because what was the original idea? Yeah, the original idea was something along the lines of there was something that people were mad at, and so he was just bringing it out. I haven't seen too much. You know, Chico's coming up. That's usually what people start getting frustrated at about. My event's not on there. Well, we just had Folsom,
right.
And some people's events I know weren't on there originally for that. Let's talk about Folsom. Curt's not here. We'll talk about Folsom anyway. So we lined up. It was rainy. He did a pre-reg, so he got in a raffle. I think he won something. I forgot to ask him what he won.
He won beer. I think that's so. The premise was if you are pre-regged and you bring extra teammates that weren't pre-regged, then you get that many spots in the raffle.
Oh, well, so, I wasn't pre-regged, so he must have got a spot at least for me.
And me, and John, and Jason. And
there you go.
So, yeah.
So we had, first of all, we showed up to that date. It was bad weather. It was 7 o'clock. I'm like, I'm not racing because I could just torrential downpour.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about, the animals getting flushed away in the backyard. But sadly, it died down. So I had to show up. But before that, Nick Castor, our teammate, he won, what was it, the 35 3/4s?
Right.
So yeah. I don't know how big a group that was, but good for him. So we had a little bit of motivation already going on the day for that. So we show up for the 35s, and how big was our group? Do you remember?
I think there was 22 starters in our group. So
you're supposed to, when you're just to fluff it, you got to add a factor of
42 starters in our. No, when we got to like you said, the morning started just terrible. It was pouring rain, but it looked like it cleared up, and I think we all agreed that okay, it's going to be okay to race. So we got down there, and it was drying out, which was good, and then we all registered, and when we got to the start line, it just seemed like it reverted back to just pouring rain.
Right.
And
if you look at the pictures, you could just tell our jerseys, our shorts are just soaked.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible racing conditions.
Right.
But we had, I don't know, 20, 25 people that started. So
yeah, so when you get, and we'll talk about kind of the P12s after as well, but smaller fields, you got to kind of watch everything. And because anything could just go, because if you get 5 guys off the front in a 20-man field, well, now you've only got 15 chasing, and maybe half of those aren't going to,
right? And
then half have teammates. I mean, things get out of hand quick.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were on it right away, watching things, chasing things down. And I didn't have glasses on, and it was a bad mistake because my eyes have been killing me all week because it just gets so much crap in your eyes.
Yeah.
But finally, if you want to, we put a video out that shows the last lap, but you actually got into the break. You want to talk about how that formed and who was in there, and then kind of what happened with that.
Yeah. Like you said, it was a small group, so a lot of attacks were going, and every single attack that went was by itself just threatening because, like I said, I mean, it takes 3 guys to get up the road, and everybody's going to shut down. So we were really attentive to either being in every move or initiating a move, and Jason Graffrath was really active as well. He and Michael Claudio were launching off the front, it seemed, quite a bit. So
two thirsty bear guys.
Yeah, around 25 minutes in the race, Jason launched an attack, and I went to go cover it and brought everybody with me. And shortly after we caught on to him, he and Nick Theobald countered.
Pete's.
And they got away quick. I mean, they were getting away from the group, and there was a lot of folks that were kind of looking around at each other like, do we really want to go after this? And so I took it upon myself just to jump across, and Jeremy Cottle from Touchstone was on my wheel, and we got like most of the way across, and then he connected the bridge to Nick and Jason, and there was really not much hesitation once we got across. There was a little bit of looking around, looking at the gap behind us, and it was just, pretty well understood that it was go time, and we just settled into a good rotation. And I think a lap and a half, 2 laps later, David Grunman bridged across to us solo. He set on for a couple poles, but he seemed like he was ready to roll too. And once there was 5 of us going, we just settled into a really good rotation and just kind of motored through until we got down to 1 lap to go. I'm assuming that there was not a ton of excitement once that group got away, because like I said, the group was already whittled down, or the main field, to fewer people because folks dropped out. And with all the major teams represented up the road, I'm not sure what you guys had going on, but I can't imagine there was a lot of action.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there was Eric Nelson who didn't make the break, so he was every lap trying to do something. So he would either attack, pull real hard, something. So we were stringing it out. So I didn't feel like it was actually easy. And, our job was just, we got in the front. And so for someone was always, every lap, someone was trying to go, whether it was, a smart move or not, they're trying to get up the road. And there wasn't a concerted group effort to just go to the front and do turns. So our thing is nothing can go without us.
Right.
So we're just constantly going with everything, which, that's just what he had. It was myself, John Novikov, Jason Smith, and Curt still left back there. So that was it. And it wasn't super easy. I mean, you guys only had 20 seconds on us on the last lap. So, but you guys were obviously concerned. I mean, let's look at who was in the group. You got Dave Grunman, perennial, crit winner. Chris Flower, perennial Chris Flower.
Local bike rider.
Jeremy Cattell, got world stripes on him from the track. He's been at nationals, done well. Jason Graffath, been to nationals, top 6 in TT and road race. Nick Theobald's a Masters national champion. Had just got top 3 in the 45s that day. So I'm very impressed. And then you're no slouch. And I'm reading those guys out just to say, you're a powerhouse too. So you guys were obviously flying up the road, and then came last lap. What was the drama?
I wouldn't say there's drama. So we made a really good effort just to not skip pulls, just keep it together and contribute. And that was all really well done. Once we got to the last lap on the backside, Motor Ref came up and let us know we still had about 25 seconds, and the pace just dropped, which makes sense. And it we had enough time to play around and see who wanted to initiate a move. And I think when we got to about half a lap remaining, Jason launched a really good attack, and there was a very small amount of hesitation, but I initially chased him, and he was going. I mean, he was going really well. So I was able to just catch into his draft going into the last corner and sprint with whatever I had left, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough to hold David Grumman off. And I came around Jason on the right-hand side and took the longer line. Unfortunately, that may have cost me the win, because it sounds like Grunman beat me by about half a wheel.
Yeah, it looked really close from that. But I don't know that you had any room on the left of him up the gutter. Looking at it, he was hugging that pretty close, and with that weather.
Right, yeah.
I think Grumman would have had to go around him as well.
Yeah.
But then probably came through on your left. You might have just, you might want to close that door next time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I just wasn't sure how much space I had in front of Jason, and I didn't want to close that off and get relegated.
For those that haven't done Folsom, you come around a pretty good right hand. It's only tight-ish corner. Well, the first corner on the race is as well, but it's a tight-ish right-hand corner. There's enough room to still carry a lot of speed. And then the sprint is 250 or so, but it's a gradual left-hand turn.
Right.
So you're sprinting straight ahead and kind of having to gradually turn left the whole time too. So it's a little just odd. And if you don't figure it just right, and like I said, close that door or maybe drift straight, there's a lot of room for everyone out there to sprint. So good job on you.
Yeah, but it was a fun race. I enjoyed it. And like I said, it was cool being in the break there with all those guys and just having them all working as hard as they were.
Right. So we have Grunman first, Chris Flower second, Jeremy Cattell third, Graffath fourth, Nick Theobald fifth, and then John Novikov and I sixth and seventh. We kind of took out the field sprint there, did our little business that we could. A lot of good work I was really proud of our team for how we did on the day. And then we just went and got burritos and hung around and took some podium pictures. And so it's I love to you on the podium. It's always interesting with different people. And I was filming it, and someone, I don't know if you or Chris had sent a text of Ricky Bobby where he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. That's what reminded me of you on the podium.
It sounds about right. Yeah, those Grunman and Jeremy are definitely seasoned podium participants. So
yeah.
They were, I think
Jeremy,
well posed.
Jeremy was, by the way, is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. But it looked like he had one of his own. He went and changed for the podium.
Right.
I mean, you changed into regular street clothes.
It was freezing cold and soaking wet, and I could have hung around in my kit, but I would have probably gotten hypothermia or something.
Let's just talk real quick. Go do some results here, and we'll highlight a few of the other races what we saw. and then we can move on. But the 45, 1-2-3, Jerome Nadal, Thirsty Bear wins. Nick Theobald, who we talked about previously. Pete's Coffee is second. Scott Fonseca in third for Audi Reno. Dean LaBerge, fourth for Pete's. And Yutch Cowhey. This is Michael David Winery, but he's definitely with...
he's a Thirsty Bear.
Yeah, that's who he was last year.
So I think Jerome, Nick, and Scotty were in a 3-man break with about a 15-second gap to the field.
Gotcha. So we had mentioned earlier, Nick Castor, DDA, had won the Masters 35 3-4. Jason Allen in second. Eric Houston in third for Sierra Nevada. Good for him. The women's P1-2-3 race, this says one here. So I don't know if they grouped some women together because when we thought we were watching it, there was 3 of them in that race.
I believe they combined the 35-plus women's 1-2-3 with the P1-2-3.
So the 4-5 women, they had a few more. Madeline Freschetti, Fanu Novita, and Elizabeth Kastner for 1-2-3. Then the women's 35 1-2-3, there's 2, Amy Moore and Michelle Nightingale. But not very many women out there. I know they didn't even have a junior field. But there's, you can race in other categories. So we saw what did we miss here?
The 2-3.
We'll talk about that real quick. I'm going to just finish up these Cat 3-4. Finn Thompson, Charlie Zamanian, and Saul Chaplin, 1-2-3 there. And then the Cat 4-5. And these were decent sized fields, especially for the weather. I mean, this one had over 34 finishers, with some DMPs, didn't starts as well. So really good, you're kind of seeing these Cat 4-5s the last few weeks doing pretty good on the volume here.
Especially if you think about their start time was probably 8 o'clock, which was during some just atrocious weather.
You're leaving at 7 when it's, it's a hurricane out there.
Yeah.
Miles Villahermosa wins that. Draft Punk Cycling, his teammate Griffin Nemitz in second, and Damian Hayes in third. So congrats on those guys. Okay, so kind of get to the other one that we watched right after our race was the Cat 2-3 man, or it's very close to it. And that one pretty early on or midway through got a break. Michael Claudio, who had been in ours, and Crichton Gruber, who we talked about last year. He's stepped up to the P1-2 field.
Yep.
Been doing well as a young kid, won the Pesquenta race, which just finished up this last weekend as well. So those two getting a break and hold the field off quite nicely. And the last lap, you're like, well, Claudio's super strong, but he's not necessarily a sprinter. He could sprint well out of a group like this.
Right.
And then Crichton comes around the corner kind of solo. So I think they had done some shenanigans in the backside, and Crichton attacked, and Claudio probably just say, go ahead.
Right.
Chased him. I don't know what happened, but
and that was the second race for Claudio as well.
Yeah, second of 3 that he was doing.
Right.
So, and then what was really most impressive there was Jeremy Pond was, the field wasn't big. It was like 11, 12 people. Jeremy Pond, 2 laps to go, stakes out his claim, jumps out, and kind of is in the middle, and he holds off the field for 3rd place, which was he was stoked. He came across the line, punching the fists around the corner, continued to do it, So obviously a big effort for him out of Rockland. So congratulations, Cameron Hawk in 4th there. Did you guys have anything from that race that you saw that was worthwhile mentioning?
No, it was impressive to see Claudio and Creighton get away and hold the field off. And they must have been. We know Claudio works hard, and Creighton's a smart racer, so they probably established a gap and realized, hey, we've got this if we work. So,
right.
New pro racer Melanie Wong was in the race. She did a couple of races this weekend as well. So
yeah, now look, we just talked about the women's race. There wasn't a lot in there, but she just jumped in the men's. She's like, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a good workout. She did the P1-2-3 race. She did the men's 2-3 race. And it's good for her because the women at the top level they're no slouch, and so get some speed work in, and she does just fine racing. So good for her. So we hung around after our burritos and tacos and saw the P1-2-3 race. Good weather finally. Didn't have rain. There's about 20 racers in there. Some danger people. You had John Borstelman of Mark Pro.
New guy to the area. You had Tarun had at least 3 riders.
Right. You had Anthony Freddy, Chat Leong, and then Timmy Bauer and his team. I don't know if he's on Spirulina, but Oak Valley former.
They had Josh as well.
So they had Josh and him, and I don't know if Cameron was in there.
He was, yeah.
Okay. Then Tarun had Matt Michael, had Bobby Terra, had Christopher Bill.
I think that's the 3
just
that they
the 3
had.
of those guys.
So I think there was like 6 Davis riders in the
mix. Yeah. So I don't know. You want to talk about what we saw there, and then we'll just kind of finish that off.
So we saw this race.
We did. We stayed for the whole thing.
And I watched the World's cyclocross race the day after, and they were very similar in that they blew up in the first 60 seconds. And
first lap.
Yeah. I mean, they came around, and it was evident that, okay, this race is blown apart. I think it was, God, who were the three that initiated the move? It was Matt Michael, I think Borstelmann, and was it Timmy?
No, I think Timmy came up later. So I think it was the two Tarun guys, Beal and Matt Michael, and
maybe the Chico guy.
There was four. Yeah, the Chico guy, the main rider. We'll have to talk about him, not in main, but just Chico.
Right, Joel Hammond.
Yes,
Joel Hammond. But yeah, there was a group of three off the front after the first lap, and then that group of three was quickly joined by I think it was Matt Chat, Freddie, and Timmy. They bridged across. They were a group of 7. They lost the Chico guy, and then they worked pretty well together until they were probably halfway ahead of the what was left of the main pack, and then Chris Beal attacked that lead group and got a little gap, and Borstelmann let that gap go, and then he jumped across to Beal. And those two established their own little move.
Did you see Matt Michael's video?
Yes.
So it seems like that spot, Michael Matt just kind of let a gap open and forced like Chat to chase.
Right.
And I don't think he closed it down. I think that's where it happened. He just was going and going, and you're like, oh, it's just two guys right there. I mean, he went right away, and they just kept going.
Yeah, it was an impressive move on both.
That's kind of the whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about. So we'll talk about this. So how long was this race?
70?
70 minutes. So for 70 minutes from the gun, they're going, like you said, the cross race.
Right.
And, the sprinters, Freddie, Chat Leong, to get in this move, but they're having to work all day. I mean, the field they didn't really have time to sit. And so it's a different dynamic than kind of what you're used to, the lazy sprinter, if you think about it.
Yeah, and in Matt's video, he points out that, once Beal's up the road and Borstelmann's up the road, the rest of them just kind of look at each other. He's like, oh, we're all sprinters. We're lazy.
Yeah.
We don't chase moves. That's not what we do. So it was a good opportunity for Beal and Borstelmann to take advantage of that and kind of extend their gap and get away.
Right. So then all day we're just kind of looking at different dynamics in there. I know Robert Terra, and it was working with the group that was with Josh Carlene, and there's probably someone else in there. And I'm like, why are you working to bring up another sprinter to your? Well, they never connected, but I mean, he was trying.
He had Franz with him at the time as well.
Yeah, John Franz, right, of Davis. So that was it. Anyway, they ended up lapping the field, Borstelmann and Beal.
Right.
Then they're kind of sitting there, and the field's not sure what do we do. What's the dynamics of this? And then finally, those guys take off, or Beal did, and forces Borstelmann to chase him. Well, then you have the next three come in and join the field,
right? And
they kind of just stay there with that field for I think almost until the last lap or so.
I think they stayed all the way through.
Right. So it was just kind of unworking. So, when you tell us about how that finished out in the last 3 laps there?
Yeah. So it was. Borstelmann and Beal, and they had a third rider, a lapped rider that was just kind of sitting in, kind of working with them. On the last lap, I think he knew he was a lap down, so he let Borstelmann and Beal go and kind of contest their race against each other. And it looked like Borstelmann, obviously, he won the sprint quite handily. It looked like Beal had done a little bit of extra work on the last lap, and Borstelmann took advantage of that. So Borstelmann took the win, Beal second, and then the other kind of chase group, but still a lap ahead group, Matt Chat, Freddie, and Michael, with Timmy. They came into the sprint, and it looked like there were a couple guys in the lap group that were kind of sprinting for 15th or whatever place they were, and it kind of muddied the lines a little bit for those guys. And Matt Michael led the group into the corner. It looked like Freddie jumped around him. Matt Chat was on his wheel. And then Matt Chat came around Freddie to take third, Freddie fourth, Michael fifth, and then Timmy kind of rounding out that lead group for sixth.
Right. And then what was interesting, I actually filmed this from the sideline, so I have a little video to put out, and I did put out all the last sprinters coming through there. So you get Borstelmann and Beal, they sprint first, and then you get, because they hadn't lapped the field yet, but they were kind of ahead but yet behind, was Josh and John Franz and Robert Terra. They all sprint, and then you see the guys that are actually ahead of them sprint behind them. So it's an odd mix, but
so It's a good challenge for the officials.
Right, and I'm sure they actually looked like they got it all right. But what was fun for us was watching this when you have laps, riders getting lapped or close to getting. There was action coming across the line like all the time. Every 10, 15 seconds there was, 20 seconds there was something happening because there was scattered so bad out there.
Yeah, a lot of groups of 2s and 3s and whatnot. So it was,
So anyway, the Borstman, it was really impressive, especially looking at Michael's video where you can see that this guy just has some just hands down raw power.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with Christopher Beal because he was not taking it easy either. I mean, he's the one that kind of initiated several of these moves and really, put himself in a great position. It wasn't necessarily a close sprint, but it wasn't a blowout either. So, good for him all the way around.
And like you said, Chico's Joel Hammond, he was impressive just because he was just so much tenacity. Well, he was in the lead group.
Right. And he was working with them.
Right.
And then gets spit out.
He fell off that group, and then it'd be easy in that situation to say, "Oh, I just got blown out. I'm going to sit up and wait for the pack to catch me." But he ended up getting caught by the second group that was chasing those lead two, and he sat in and worked with them. He just didn't sit on, and he just kind of kept continuously.
Well, then he went to the Josh, Carlene, Franz, Robert Terry group,
right?
And we kept saying, "Oh, he's getting popped off," and then he would catch up,
right?
And he was doing that all day, and he ends up staying ahead of the field. So we call him out because I liked his work all day because he got in the move of the very first lap and just kind of did what he had to.
Yeah,
so.
It was impressive.
Right, and let me look here. So Joel Hammond doesn't say, he's a Cat 3. So top Cat 3 of the race.
Nice.
There you go.
Well done.
Yes, very well. All right, so that ends up Folsom. Any lasting memories that you want to talk about for that race?
Just the weather was terrible in our race. I mean, it was difficult to see. It was difficult to breathe. It was challenging.
Right.
But other than that, I really like the race because it's a mile from home for me. So I just always feel an extra level of obligation to get out there and race. And they've done that race at that venue for so long that it's just like clockwork for them, and they can just churn out really good events. So.
Right. Although we were told it's barely above a early bird.
That's true.
Right. That was. I didn't even say who said that. Kind of official sliding their own race. I mean, come on. Did I say official? Bump race. So we didn't show up for that. I don't know much about that. Do we even want to go through some results? It might be best to talk to some people. I did look through some actually results, and let's just hit some ones that kind of hit our fancy. The 35 123 Will Riffelmacher, of the Olympic Club. He comes in and wins that. His teammate Christopher Colville in second. Greg McCullough of Cyclosport in third. Jeremy Cattell down there in fifth. So he had a good weekend. And then I saw Riffelmacher, Will, did well also in the P12 race. That was won by Morgan Gerlach of the Olympic Club. So that whole team, we worried about our bar bat points on that. Jeff Linder comes in second for Tarun. William Downing of Century Road Club Association in third. Coble fifth. Well, like I said, his teammate in sixth. So good for them. So yeah, bar bat. Data-driven athlete, still maintaining top spot.
We've got the 35 123 covered for now.
For now. What's the next events on the schedule for that?
I think it might be Cherry Pie, right?
Okay.
I think there's a CCX race on the calendar, but I haven't seen much about it, and it may or may not happen.
The one this weekend was canceled.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I saw that on the calendar. So. Okay, so maybe if you guys did well in the bump, you want to talk to me about it or tell me something, maybe chime in on our YouTube channel, and give us a little say, hey, here's what happened. And
it's a good course.
Or release a video about it or something.
I think if the weather was a little more cooperative, I may have gone down. It's just I didn't have 2 rainy race days.
Right, so it's rainy. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and Pesquenta is happening. So you got a draw everywhere else with the bump. But it's still that still drew some people, and they went down there and raced because I think it's a good race. How about some things that make you go, ready for talking about some of them?
Yeah, we can do that. I kind of already talked about one, and that was just kind of the beer throwing by the Belgians.
You can take the other one because it ties into with your last week.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that one. So the one that I will say, things that make you go, it's one item that we really talked about. We kind of glanced on it a little bit. Is Pesquenta, unofficial road race up in Chico. It's a little over 100 miles, kind of goes out. It's called Pesquenta, but it starts and finishes in Chico. Pesquenta's on the complete opposite side of the valley. So it goes out generally flat with some rollers, hits the Pesquenta gravel in the opposite direction that we normally do it on the Chico road race.
It's all downhill this way. It's just easy.
Exactly. Yeah, you just coast it. But it seems like it's comes and goes in terms of attendance and interest by folks. And this year it was won by, I think Anthony Ferretti won. And he's with A-Main, and they brought their whole team out, and that was definitely one of their targets for the early season, is to keep that trophy in Chico. And it's one of the events where, you know, it's an unofficial race. There's no categories, there's no officials, there's no road closures. It's just kind of go out and use your brain. But there's a trophy that gets passed around each year, and the expectation is that if you win, you add something to the trophy, and when you give it back, it just kind of grows in like lore.
A spore.
Yeah. So cool race. It's been attended by some really high level guys, and it seems to always have that tradition of being like an absolute slugfest. And I assume this year was no different. I saw some pictures of guys having to ride through like 6-inch deep pools of water and whatnot. So it's a tough event, but A-Main brought it and kept it home.
Yeah, it looks like they kind of just said, this isn't going to happen what happened last year, which was Crichton Gruber winning. Right. So they brought the whole team and slugged it out. It looked like second place was Jonathan Baker.
Yes.
So a local guy up there and does well. So my thing is, I'll do two runs real quick. One you had mentioned last week, that Froome had said, hey, Thomas, the Giro route is looking good for you. So this week he comes out and Froome says about Bernal, hey, Bernal, I bet you can win the Giro on your first attempt. It's at some point, any thread, he's just going to start picking races for him. So I hope he's not running the schedule.
Right.
But the entire team there. So just a little issue that happened in our race of a late start was myself. I didn't start late, but I just thought I'd tell you about that real quick. So I show up to the race. I'm already running late. Grab my stuff. I only live 10 minutes or so from the course there, but it's rainy and people get stupid on the road. Pull in. I go and pay for it. I'm walking back to my car, and I look over and see my teammate John, and I see his nice white shoes, and I suddenly realize I forgot my shoes at home. So I jump in the car. I'm like, I got to go. I call my wife. She's like at the grocery store. So I'm like, shit, this is going to happen. And when I left the house, I was already empty on gas. So I'm like, well, this is going to happen. So I drive home. I go flying into my garage. I grab my shoes. As I look up, I see my helmet hanging there too. So I'd already had my bibs on from when I left the house the morning. So as I'm driving, I pin my jersey.
Wow.
I get fully dressed, including shoes and booties. Okay. Helmet. I pull into the race. I jump out. Now I've got to put my wheels on. I'm doing it all real quick. Roll to the start line. 5 minutes. It's 11:50, and they start at 11:55. And I had no warm up.
So you may not have been warmed up. I'm sure your heart was like ready to go.
Oh yeah,
though.
I was kind of almost shaky because I was trying to get that rear wheel in the back, and it was it's just such a. So yes, that's not ideal. And then you've got this. So actually, the first half of the race was really bad because I had been sick. Hadn't really ridden much, and so then my heart rate kind of is spiking, and then I hadn't warmed up right.
Yeah.
So the first half of the race was just cramping, just weird shit. But you know what? It happened. So I mean, there's other people that come late to the race or miss their start, and they're there. And as a matter of fact, raced the morning before, or the same morning, different race. But I made it. That's just what I was saying. I'm not going to tell how many traffic rules I broke doing that though.
But I think several if you're pinning and getting dressed.
pretty awesome. NCAA calendar coming up. So Cantua Creek the 16th, Pine Flat the 17th. Then we got a bivvy of original ones here. Cherry Pie, the President's Day on the 18th. Snelling the 23rd. Merced Crit on the 24th. It's called the original Merced Crit. So maybe back to that one.
That goes behind like the courthouse in an alley and whatnot.
If it's the one, I think so, that used to have some speed bumps involved.
Okay.
I'm not sure. We'll have to.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by
original.
Yeah.
Coming up in March, then Madera Stage Race so far is on the calendar, the 1st through the 3rd of March. Chico 29th and 31st, but before that you have Auburn and Winchester 16th and 17th. And like I said, Chico is confirmed, so we'll have that one.
Reg is open for Chico, so get in there.
Reg is open for Chico. And, just an item of note here is, the bad fire and stuff that they had there, it may be a little tough getting housing for Chico. So kind of have that in mind. Real quick, once again, we are sponsored by Health IQ. If you want to, for all your health insurance, life insurance needs, you go there, healthiq.com/BTW to support the show, to learn more. But basically, it's a great way to get quotes for life insurance. I've done it myself. I suggest you should too, and use our code. It does help us. We're trying to keep growing and getting equipment, and otherwise it's just the burden's on us. So thanks. Some winners and losers for this week. Chris.
Yeah, for the winner, I'm going to go with a safe bet in Vanderpool. I mean, he just destroyed Cross Worlds and looks like he's got a really bright future if he wants to keep riding his bike.
I'm interested to see what's his body type look like for road riding.
He's not a small guy, but he's not a huge guy either. I mean, he's 6'1", something like that.
Okay.
Modest build. He's got a decent sprint. So.
Oh, okay. So it'll be interesting to see if he crosses over and how that happens. For my winner, it's you.
Oh,
and for all those for getting your second place, I was really impressed. Super happy. And Nick Castor, who we got two wins or a win there, continuing that. Really happy with your showing, and never was a chance, a time in that race that I wasn't confident that having you up the road or that getting you up the road. So really glad you came through on my confidence for you.
Happy to do it.
I want to say one other one was Anthony Ferretti and Matt Chatt. They're both of them getting their early season results. It seems like Ferretti a few years ago was raging, and I don't know. Last year he had his best year, so. This early season, he's back on form. So, What about a loser? Do you have any of that?
I was picking myself for not winning and picking a bad sprint line.
Okay,
so kind of bummed, but
totally understandable. Very close.
What are you going to do?
So, yeah. Well, I was still impressed with it though. Either way, my loser, I was going to say Richie Port, just for his whining. I mean, get over it. It's World Tour stuff. I might be missing some of the details. Maybe Mike Woods is a total dick to him in the peloton and whining himself. I could see that happening, but at this point, I'm just saying get over it. So
sounds fair.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So our next race, Snelling, Cherry Pie.
I think Snelling for sure. For me, Cherry Pie. We'll see. Okay.
Any other things you want to talk about for cycling, and how's your form and your fitness, everything ramping up for all this? Because obviously you're on a high right now.
It's been going good, but we've been really fortunate with the weather lately,
right.
With the exception of these last few days.
Right.
I'm looking at the forecast right now, and it's not that bright. Looks like the days when it's not going to be raining for us, it's going to be like in the 30s and 40s. So it's I might have to reinvest in my trainer time.
Right. I tried to do that last night, and then I had a Garmin issue, and my old Garmin wasn't charged, and I was all kitted up and ready. And so I'm spending like time trying to fix this. It's so weird that a stupid little computer can basically make me say I'm not going to ride my bike at all. If I didn't have a Garmin watch to record it, I might not have even done it.
Right.
Stupid.
That's a good thing you had that watch, though. That's
right,
handy.
Right. Yeah, at least I recorded my heart rate.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks everyone for joining up. This is episode 99. Once again, we'll be out there on our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook. I am going to try, like I said, we'll try to do a little live stream for the upcoming races. So stay tuned for some announcements on that. We've also been putting on our Facebook page, but really our YouTube page, just trying to grow that one because it's a real good platform for getting videos and stuff up. We've been doing more race videos. Chris had one that we put up from last race, and when I put some of these videos up, like we're talking about it, and we're talking about the race, and you guys have race videos, I try to tag your video when we're talking about it. So when you're watching this show, you can just click on it and check out the races as well. So different people, Linder, Matt, Michael, Chris, Zimney's done that as well. So anyway, Between Two Wheels podcast, check us out, share the show, and once again, thank you for joining. Thanks for supporting. Chris, thank you for coming in, and especially thank you for being on the podium to help us look like we're knowing what we're doing.
Happy to do it.
Your podium picture doesn't make it look like you know what you're doing, but thanks for getting up there.
Right.
All right, thanks for joining. See ya.